Thank you so much for being with us today. This is Real Talk with Miss Brenda. I'm Miss Brenda. This is a young woman that came to the center many years ago, like 2004. She met me. So I want her to tell you a little bit about it. Her story is so compelling. It is one of the most compelling stories I've ever heard. It is truly life-changing when I listen to her, and I hope you'll let this move in your heart and you just listen carefully to what she has to say. Cynthia.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, when did you first come in contact with me or Lovelady?
Well, it was 20 years ago in 2004. I was in work release. I had went through Tutwiler to do the drug program called SAP. And I had to do a year at work release. And I remember you came in one day and you were talking about this vision that you had, and you were talking about getting women to come and live at your house. Well, me, at that time, I was like, I just did the SAP program. I'm okay. I'm cured. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But that's when I first came in contact with you. Nevertheless, 2 years later, I ended up relapsing. You know, I relapsed. It happens over and over if you don't finally get God in your life and get it right. So in 2006, I remembered the red-headed lady that came in the work release, and she wanted to help drug addicts. And I found the Lovelady Center in 2006, and that's the first time I went to the Lovelady Center. And I didn't have any money. I had a bad relapse, and the Lovelady Center invited me in, and they let me in with no money, and I graduated the program in 6 months, and I thought I had it made again. And you put me over development, which was not really development, because we were on one floor, and I was in an empty room. You were trying to get development together, but you had given me that position. But I always would think I had it all together. And I ended up, after I graduated, I thought I had it together, and I left again.
We kind of get it together when we think we're hopeless, and when we give everything up, and it just goes, it all comes to God. Well, you had to do something to get in Tutwiler. Tell me a little bit about what was your life like as a child?
Okay, I'm going to do this without crying, but
Crying is allowed.
yes, ma'am. Well, now that I have, God has changed my life, and I've given it to God, and I help other people, it's something that I can talk about easily. Well, growing up, we grew up in the projects. My mom had 4 girls, and she raised us on her own. But I come from a family of alcoholics. I hated alcohol growing up because it was always a big party. Everybody, we were on welfare, food stamps in the projects. We had no money, but there was always big parties at our house. And once the parties started, it was drinking, fighting, molestation. So my mom had different boyfriends all the time, and my mom drank all the time. So she would go party and leave us with the boyfriends. And at 12 years old, I always start with that because it seems like my life fell apart because I would lay in my mom's bed at night when she's out drinking, hoping that when she come home, she'll wake me up and I'll get to know that she's home. I would always want my mom, no matter how much we had beatings and, fighting. And my mom shot a boyfriend in front of me. She stabbed my sister's dad from the top of his stomach down to the bottom of his stomach. And they would always come back. I would see all these stabbings and shooting. One time she shot at a boyfriend and ended up shooting herself. It's like it was nothing growing up. But this night, I didn't fall asleep in my mom's bed. And I felt her boyfriend touching me, molesting me. And it was so shocking. I didn't realize that he had been doing this all the time. I would always find myself in my bed in the morning. I'm like, how did I get in my bed? But I would never think about it. But this night I wasn't asleep, and I kept my eyes closed, and I pretended to be asleep through the whole thing because I was so scared. It was like I was numb. Couldn't move. I couldn't think. And the next day I told my mom. My mom cussed at me, screamed at me, hit me, called me names, and told me I wanted her boyfriend. She threw a bottle of gel and busted me in the head. It was like my mom was fighting me like a grown woman about her man, and I was just telling her what he did to me. So I kept going to school, pretending everything was okay because that's the way my family is. You don't talk about anything. And you don't tell. And I told. And finally I called my grandma. I told her. She said, I'm going to talk to your mom. Nobody ever mentioned it again. So every day when I went to school, I was like, it was in my mind. I was crying every day. I made straight A's in school. I wanted somebody to tell me they love me. I wanted somebody to tell me I did good. So that's why. But finally, I decided I wanted to die. So at 12 years old, I went in my mom's closet and I got this bottle. Now that I'm an adult, I know it was phenobarbital. That's what the doctor said. And I was in a coma for a long time. I was in Children's Hospital. I ended up living in Children's Hospital. I was in a wheelchair. I had to learn how to walk again, talk again. I woke up out of that coma and my mama and the boyfriend that molested me was standing over my bed. So I just knew that that's the way my life was going to be. with him there, and I was just going to have a bad life.
Well, God had other plans for you. So you tried to kill yourself at 12
years old. I was in 6th grade. And I really thought, I was serious. That's why I didn't tell nobody. And I took those pills and I went and laid in my bed. But I woke up weeks later, I opened my eyes and that's who I saw. And, I was so happy to live at Children's Hospital. I felt like I was happy in the wheelchair. And then I was on a walker and I was on crutches. And then I talk, and then I even told the doctor. I don't remember what happened because they sent me home a few months later and I was right back there. So I don't know what my mom told them. I don't remember much. I just know that I went right back to school and I started making straight A's again.
Well, I come from right the opposite kind of family. I mean, I was my daddy's little girl, and he protected me, and I know how it was with my daddy, and I know how blessed I was, how much I loved him. I can't even imagine the projects now. When girls come in from the project, I hear this story, as wild as this seems to most of us. This is a way of life for many of our women.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's never anything to be ashamed of. Jesus died on that cross to take away our shame. But you're 12 years old, and you finished school.
Oh, Miss Brenda, after I got back in school and I knew that I wanted something better. I was like, I always wanted a daddy, but I never had one of those. But I heard about this place called the Alabama School of Fine Arts. And in my mind, I was trying to figure out a way not to be in the projects and be like, I don't want to, like my mom. I was just wanting to be the opposite. So I found out this place called School of Fine Arts. And I knew you had to have a talent. And so I tried to figure out if I had a talent. I knew I made good grades, but so I made up a talent, Miss Brenda. And
You're
so
dancing.
I was in theater. So I wrote this monologue.
You're very dramatic. So yeah.
I can't help it. But because now that's me. But I made up this monologue and I snuck off on Friday afternoon. My mom, we would do what we wanted. I just didn't want to do the wrong thing. So I went to School of Fine Arts and I auditioned and I got a letter in the mail and they said I was accepted. I was the only black in my class to graduate from the School of Fine Arts. So I learned theater and I knew that if you're at the School of Fine Arts, you're going to go to school from 8 a.m. till 5, and then you're going to have to rehearse whatever plays that you're doing from 7 till 10. So that meant I wouldn't have to be home. And that's really what I was trying to do, not be home.
Well, that's what you did.
And it worked. And then I got a full scholarship to UAB in theater. And so I got, it's like God took me out of all of that. And I got married as fast as I could. And I went to college. But at 15 years old, I want to tell you what happened. I was at the School of Fine Arts in the 10th grade. And I wanted to go to a public school to a basketball game. So I didn't really know about public school then because I had got kind of bougie. So I went, and Bobby Humphrey was my boyfriend. Well, we talked on the phone. That's all you could do is talk on the phone. And so I wanted to go see one of those games. So my mama dropped me off at the game, and she said, "I'll be back and pick you up at 9 o'clock. And you stand outside and you wait for me." Well, Miss Brenda,
Oh, no.
I waited. It was in West End. And I waited and waited. My mama didn't show up. I called the house. My sister said she was at the club and she was drunk. Well, I ended up getting gang raped by 3.
By 3 guys. Because your mother left you standing out there.
Yes, ma'am. So they took me to this park, and they left me at that park, and I walked all the way home. I had blood going down my legs. I get home, and my mom was standing out there ready to beat me. She said that I was lying. They didn't rape me. So one of my sister's dad was there, and my mama told me to take a shower. He told me to get in the car and took me to Children's Hospital, and that's how I had proof. So I went through trials for them from 10th to 12th grade while I was still at the School of Fine Arts making straight A's, and I got all three of them.
Put in jail.
Yes, ma'am.
That's good.
And that, my mama never, ever believed it. She did not go to trial. I remember being in trial and doing my classwork for the School of Fine Arts while I was in the trial, because I didn't want to leave that school. And I remember my sister's dad was there, but I went through that trial by myself. And I had to testify for 3 different trials for each one of those guys. And the one that was the youngest, he told on the other 2, and that's how he turned state's evidence on them, but he did it too. But I had to agree to him getting less time.
Well, that's okay. Sometimes legally we have to do things that we don't necessarily want to do.
But it made me stronger, Miss Brenda.
My allergies are bad. You'll have a hard time understanding
It's
me.
okay. It's okay. It just made me more determined. And in the class of
So
85.
when did you get on drugs?
Oh, Miss, God, you have some good questions. I thought, that's why, I think that people that have a childhood like that needs to get some kind of therapy or help, because
Absolutely,
I held
got
it
to.
in. And I got married as fast as I could. My husband is still married, 36 years. We're separated, but we're best friends. He's my best friend. But
He's a white guy.
yeah, my husband's white. All my
I met
kids.
him.
Yeah. He's a wonderful man, and
Yeah, he is.
He was with me throughout the whole thing. He helped me through the rest of college, because at 19 I became a stripper to pay for my college, so I wouldn't have to live with my mom. But I met him, and I stopped stripping. He paid for the rest of my college. I had a scholarship. I had a grant, but I wouldn't have been able to finish college without my husband.
Do you think that maybe you settled on him because he's a little bit like a husband and a daddy?
Yes, and he was opposite of anything I had seen.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
a good man.
Yes. So this is how I got on drugs, Miss Brenda. I thought I had forgotten about all of that stuff, and I was gonna never think about it again. And I did shows. I traveled. I did 7 national talk shows. I had my own local talk show, and it was local people, local problems, like AIDS, abortion doctors, things like that. And it was a local show. I didn't get paid, but I was always interested in helping people. And I ended up traveling, made a lot of money, had a good marriage. But 11 years after I got married, I was 30 years old. I'd done a show at the Comedy Club. I worked at Comedy Club 3 years, and Blue Moon Dinner Theater. I would do shows at night while people ate their dinner. And one night after a show, somebody said, I had a couple of drinks, and they said, I got something to sober you up. Let's go to the car. And that's how people start doing drugs. And that's why I help kids in schools, drug prevention, because you make a decision, yes or no, and it's a fast decision, and you don't know your whole life is going to go. And that's what happened to me. I said, yeah, let's go to the car. And I was doing shows and everything.
You know what? Just looking back on it, for somebody like me, it looks like you ran your whole life from doing that, and then in a matter of seconds, you said, okay, I'll do it. After you run your whole life. Why would you do that?
I think it was, I thought I was happy, so I thought I was going to celebrate. And I didn't realize that drug addiction is something.
They gave you cocaine.
Yes, ma'am. We went to the car, and he was a really rich guy. He owns the biggest plumbing company.
Well, that doesn't matter.
But,
We don't.
and he had plenty of money and stuff. So I was like, it didn't hurt him. So we put it on that dashboard, and I did it like it was a game. I just did it, and by the time I was trying to go home that night,
You weren't the least bit interested in going home.
no, I made a left turn and I went to the projects. And that's what happened. I knew drugs was in the projects. I knew you could find drugs in the project. So I said, I'm just going to do a little bit more. And my whole life, it took my whole life. It took my husband, my family, my children, went to DHR, my house, my cars, my bank account.
Did you get what? You turned to crack, or you?
I did cocaine the first couple of weeks. But then after that, they'll tell you it's the same difference. You just have to smoke this. And me, not knowing I did it. That's how young people fall into it. That's why my daughter at 19 years old is dead from fentanyl, because she was doing drugs. I knew my daughter was doing drugs.
So what you did is you repeated, this is me, and let's get real. But what you did is you allowed your daughter to start repeating your life.
You just said it, Miss Brenda.
Well, I know that's so hurtful.
And I went to.
But that's what we do.
Yeah, it's
The very thing we say we're not going to ever allow to happen. Darn, that's exactly what we do.
Yes, ma'am. And before you know it, I started going to jail. And possession.
How many times have you been to jail?
I've been to the city jail. I was there all the time, like a second house. After I lost everything, I didn't care no more. But, they let you back out, and that was the easy jail. But then, if you have a certain amount of drugs, you're going to the big one, to Tutwiler, and Tutwiler, they give me first they did the 6 month, the 9-week program. Then I did the 6-month program. And the last time I went to Tutwiler was 2009. And that's where I met Father William, who also worked at the Lovelady. But I had been at Lovelady twice before then. They let me back again. And
what, Lovelady?
Lovelady.
Boy, you can say that for me.
Y'all just let me back in there again. But that time,
looking back on it now and listening to the story, I'm thinking, what was I thinking? But the truth of the matter is that we do sometimes let people have chance after chance, because I see things in people that they don't see in themselves.
Yes, ma'am. It saved my life. I had a family. I had somewhere I could go. And that last relapse I had in 2009, I went to prison right after that from the Lovelady Center, because I had went on a pass and I would drink. And Miss Melinda saw that I had drank. But that saved my life, because I had graduated Lovelady again.
We do tend to send people back if they
and I needed
go.
it, Miss Brenda. I've been clean ever since.
That's wonderful.
2000. Listen, this is what happened. I had relapsed that last time, and I got hit by an 18-wheeler. Look, that's why my arms.
Sounds like he knows some sense in it.
my arms was put back together. I was in a wheelchair again, and my leg was all messed up. I had a halo on my arm, and I went to jail. They came and picked me up, the bail bondsman, because I had been in the hospital from the 18-wheeler, and I had warrants. So they came and got me. And right after the hospital, after being healed from that and walking again from the 18-wheeler, I had been up 7 days, and I walked in front of an 18-wheeler from drugs. And Lovelady let me back in that last time, and
you didn't have to go back to Tutwiler.
Let me tell you, I went back, and that's when I met Father
How
William.
many times have you gone to Tutwiler?
That was my second time. That was my third time.
Third time.
But I did the crime.
You've been to, okay.
I did 2 drug treatment, and that last time, they gave me 10 years. But let me tell you what happened, Miss Brenda.
We're not going to concentrate on Father William right now.
Okay, but I ended up getting out of Tutwiler in 8 months. And my daughter, I found out that my children had gotten into the same thing. My son had started selling drugs, carrying guns, shooting, fighting.
I know. We're going to talk about that in a second. I want to talk about what happened to your daughter.
Well, after I got out of prison that last time, I got a house, got a job, got my children out of DHR, and I had all my children in my
That's
house.
why you were at Lovelady.
Is
that
my
right?
daughter died.
No, I mean, you got all that stuff back.
I got it all back.
Right. And you were with your husband then?
My whole family, we were back together, but I found out that my children had fell into drugs while I was out there doing drugs. And so my daughter had left one night, and my mind told me to stop her. But my daughter never came home after that, and that was in 2015, and I had been clean for years. I had gotten everything back, but I ended up, my daughter died, and the death certificate said fentanyl overdose. My daughter never came home. She was 19 years old, and I had God had given me everything after I had went to Lovelady that last time, and my daughter
So you
died.
lost your daughter, your beautiful daughter, to drugs.
Yes, her name was Kimberly, and I felt like my life was over, Miss Brenda. I really didn't want to live. I swear to God, I didn't want to live no more. Because I said, God, you gave me everything back. And now you took my baby.
He didn't take your baby.
That's what I thought.
Well, he didn't take your baby.
I know that now, Miss Brenda.
I mean,
That's the way I felt.
I would love to be able to say, oh, you're right, and this.
No.
But that's not true.
I know it now, Miss Brenda, because I ended up relapsing after all those years. And I called Lovelady. I was embarrassed. I said, I can't go back there. They think I'm doing good. And I tried to handle it myself, and I ended up relapsing. But Lovelady had already planted that seed in me. God, I was saved already. So I was saved. I would pray. I was still doing drugs. I had relapsed. I would pray. I would read the Bible and do drugs all at the same time.
I was talking to somebody last night. They were telling me, Mimi, she called me Mimi, I am reading my Bible. I am praying. I said, but something is missing here. You don't have that one-on-one relationship with Jesus. He's got to be your best friend. He's got to be walking with you. You got to let him carry you through these times.
I've got that now, Miss
Okay,
Brenda.
so your daughter, I am so sorry. Your daughter OD'd on fentanyl.
Yes, ma'am.
And your daughter passed.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you came back.
I called the lovely. I couldn't, after all that praying and that I was in that house by myself, the grandchildren were gone. My other daughter moved out because she knew I had relapsed. A whole family gone again. And I was in that house using every day. And then it's like I was praying one night.
You hadn't dealt with all that.
No, all that
mess.
time, Miss Brenda. Yeah, and God,
you
it's
didn't
like
deal
God.
with it.
God said,
Okay, so now then, I want to get to your son. What happened? Right after you lost your daughter, you came back to the center and you were doing good, but your son had already gotten out there.
oh, my son's been in prison for 14 years.
No, I mean your son had already gotten out there again.
When I got home, my son was like about 17, and he was like drug dealer, and I found all that out, and I got him to move in with all my other kids. But when I got all my kids back, I didn't know how to handle everything. I didn't know all my children were doing
Did your
what they
daughter
were.
OD before your son got arrested or after?
No, ma'am. It was after my son got arrested. My
Was
daughter died while
Kimberly
my son was in
upset?
prison. Yes, Kimberly got worse when my son went to prison. And Kimberly stopped coming home. She got a boyfriend that was taking pills.
Why is your son in prison?
My son is in prison with life without for capital murder. Murder for hire.
Okay, I'm asking you that because I want people to see that how their decisions affect everybody else. What's your son's name?
His name is Samuel Duggar.
Samuel.
Yes, ma'am.
So Samuel's in prison right now
Yes, ma'am.
in Limestone.
Yes, ma'am.
How's he doing in prison? I know he was doing great. I remember he was preaching, and he was doing great in prison.
when I changed my life, after I finally got help from Lovelady, helped me with everything, therapy, counseling. Once I got my
We can't break people out of prison, though, can we?
no, I wish you could, but
I wish I could too.
you know, when
I got to do it the legal way.
well, maybe we'll work on it. But my son, when I got, 7 years ago, when I got started ministering and helping others, because that's what saved my life, helping others, not concentrating on my past, and forgiving other people that did me wrong and asking forgiveness and all that.
What about forgiving yourself for what you've done?
I've done that now, but I
know
still
you
can't
have.
stop the tears.
The tears are okay.
But my son, when I
Tears
found
wash
out
us.
what he was doing, and I blame myself for all of that. I did, but I don't anymore. We all make choices. Life is about choices. And my son was, Lovelady, can I say something? When I wanted to start a ministry,
Unless I kick you.
okay, if you kick me, I'll stop.
Okay.
But when I wanted to start a ministry, Lovelady would drive me to these schools to talk to these kids. And they would pick me up.
Listen, it's important. I want you to talk to the schools. I want you to talk to other people. That's therapeutic for you. I just had to wait a while to make sure that this time was the real deal.
All right, well, it's been 7 years now, Miss
Now
Brenda.
I know it's the real deal. I'm convinced. Okay.
Okay.
But I want to take just a minute out to talk about your son's in Limestone Prison.
Okay, thank you. Well, Miss Brenda, when he
Tell
was...
me about where that's happening, and let's talk a minute about this, because these are problems that the state of Alabama has. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my son, he started out at Holman. It's been 14 years. He started out at Holman.
He went to Kilby first.
Kilby, then Holman, and then they moved him to Donaldson, which is 30 minutes away in Bessemer. And my 7 years ago...
It sounds like that'd be an ideal prison.
Oh, my son changed and he saw what I was doing out here. My son got saved. They called him Pastor Sammy in the prison. He works with the chaplain. He was doing the prayer calls. He would go to every block. People were coming to him. I would be talking to him on the phone. People were coming to him for, mentoring. And my son was there 6 years. Well, out of the blue.
Donaldson.
At Donaldson. But 3 months ago, out of the blue, in the middle of the night, they transferred my son to Limestone. I didn't
That
hear.
happens during the middle of the night. That's when they move them,
Yes, ma'am.
because nobody ever knows, and they just wake them up and move them in the middle of the night.
And my son called me on the phone one day at Limestone and said, "I'm at Limestone, Mama. They're dying every day. They're stabbing each other in the neck. They're killing each other. There's fentanyl all over this prison." Then I didn't talk to my son again for a month. And the next time I talked to my son,
He wasn't your son anymore, was he?
Miss Brenda, my son is now on fentanyl. He cannot
Right
get
in the prison.
the
Right there in the prison that is brought in either over the fence or the guards or a visitor will bring it in. But fentanyl is rampant in the Alabama prisons. It is a major problem we have. Go ahead.
Miss Brenda, he can't control it. He can't get off of it. It's everywhere. He can't afford it.
Okay, how's he paid for it?
My son had my son had gotten married when he was in prison. She's left him now since he'd been at Limestone. He sold his Lexus that his wife had. He sells his food. He works on their lap. They have little tablets. He'll fix their tablets. My son he's just trying his best to pay for it.
And now then, he's in the hole, isn't he?
Yes, ma'am. They're threatening to kill my son right now. My son 3 nights ago finally told me that they're going to kill him. He said, "I'm going to die from an overdose, and that's fentanyl killed my daughter." He said, "I'm going to die from an overdose, or they're going to stab me in the neck." He said, "I'm going to die, Mama."
Okay, I want to
That's
talk
what he
just a
said.
second. No. Last week I met with DOC in my office, and they are I met with the most wonderful people. I love the people that are in DOC right now. But the problem is so big that they are struggling. The inmates are running the prison, and it is a horrible situation that we've got. We put people in prison to rehab them, and that's not what they're getting. A lot of them come out better, but for the most part, I'm hearing this story every single day. The other day, one of the guys was in prison that one of the gang people called him and said that he had to give $350 or they would fix him to shank him. And that dad paid the $350. Now, God had to cash app it to him. So they've got the cash app information, everything, and called the warden. And the warden had gotten fired for bringing in dope. It is a rough situation right now. Alabama prisons, the system is one of the worst in the nation.
Yes, ma'am. Miss
And I
Brenda.
wish I could give you some good news about this, but there's not any. I would urge you to call and see what you could do. The women's prison is not as rough.
I
Just
didn't
by
see any
nature.
drugs there.
No, just by nature, we're better than the men. No. But I will tell you this. I had a lady that came in. I really loved her, but she had this scar all the way across her neck. I said, Barbara, what's with this scar? She said, I had a fan and I wouldn't share it and they cut my throat. No air conditioned. 110 degrees, 120 degrees in those buildings. Tempers are running bad. Mm-hmm. People are escaping any way they can. But we'll hope we can get your son out of that mess.
And I was so proud. My son, they call him Preacher Man at Donaldson. And it's like Satan just came and just took my child, another child.
It's generational. I mean, we've got to, you have broken it now. What about your other two kids?
Okay.
Are they good?
Yes, ma'am. I have my daughter. She's 33 years old. Her name is Brittany Duggar. I think all of the things that I went through, my daughter did the opposite.
Good.
This one is she works 2-3 jobs. She moved her whole family a block away from me in Homewood, and she's got a good husband, great mother. All my grandkids, even my son's children, she gets them every weekend. My daughter that died, she had a 3-year-old when she died. She's 14 now, and she's with me 3 days a week, and my daughter, and we take all trips together, me, my daughter, my husband, and all my grandbabies. That one just watched everything that was going on.
And did the exact opposite.
Yes, having a sister die, a brother in prison, and her and my son, they were best friends growing up because I was on drugs. So they were best friends. And I have one more daughter that I had during my addiction. And we really never had a good relationship, but she's in New York. We're working on it. She FaceTimes me all the time. I go to New York once a year, visit her and my grandbaby.
God has brought you around.
God is awesome.
Just completely around.
God is
I am
good.
so happy for you. And I'm so glad to have you at the center doing stuff with us. You are just an amazing person.
Thank you, Miss Brenda.
And let me tell you, I think I'm a survivor. Well, I know I am.
Yes, ma'am.
But until we walk in somebody's shoes, we don't know. I've never suffered like you did as a child.
Yes, ma'am.
I never went the way of drugs.
Thank God.
Food's the closest I've come. I just never felt like that was for me. But I've had other things, and I've had to forgive myself for other things.
Yes, ma'am.
I've forgiven so much, and I've asked for forgiveness for so much, and I know you have. And Cynthia, I see you going out, witnessing, talking about Jesus, going to the schools, helping young people, helping everybody. You have a house in Inslee, or where's Kim's
The house where I help the men, it's in Fountain Heights, right above BJCCC, the Civic Center.
And you have how many men that live there?
Well, there's 4 now. I can get up to 6. It's a old family house, and that's where I had gotten my kids back. And I couldn't afford it. When I graduated Lovelady, I couldn't afford to keep paying for that house, but I didn't want to lose it. And I know that's where all my kids were together.
So you made a house for guys that finished the program to come back to?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that is very wonderful.
I call it Restoration House, Kim's place. My daughter's name was Kim. So in order to keep the house going, not lose it, I just have men there. I help them to restore their lives, because we're after rehab or prison or drugs, or you just need to get your life back together.
Yes, and it is a delight all the time when I see you, and you're just so beautiful when you dance, and you have just done a remarkable job turning everything around. And I am honored and privileged to know you. I love you so much.
Thank you.
And
Ms.
I just
Brenda.
want you to keep on keeping on, girl.
Yes,
Don't you
ma'am.
ever look back. Never, ever.
Yes, ma'am.
If you ever need us, we're here.
Yes.
You can find us, I'm sure of that.
Oh, I know where to get you.
Yeah, you found me before, over and over.
Thank God I found you.
Okay, well, listen, thank you so much. I love you, and as always,
I love you,
keep
Miss
it going.
Brenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In the name of Jesus. Yes.